Hello and welcome to 1 in 20 D&D. I am Gregory and you're watching another recap from our game, the VÄRLDEN Reach, which is our weekly 5th edition Dungeons& and Dragons game, hosted by the amazing DM, the Bearded Bugbear. This is session 4 recap, so let's see if we can get right into it. When we started off the session, we were standing essentially outside One-Eyed Willie's tavern in the graveyard district of Orison. We had discovered that we were trying to find Janice Flintdew, or at least find more information about Janice Flintdew, and where he left with the money from the coffers of the city where he is from in Vilson. His wife had essentially hired us to go and track him and the money down, and so far this is where we ended up. Now, we were told to ask for a sex on the beach once we got to Willie's. While we were approaching the tavern, Lily noticed a well-dressed man entering kind of through the back door. So Lily taps Alina and says, "Hey, let's check this out." They sneak off to follow this well-dressed man. The rest of us proceed into the actual bar itself, and we just had a crazy bit of stuff happen. Lily and Alina followed this guy. He hit a sconce on the wall in the kitchen, and it revealed a secret door, so they kind of go and follow him down. Meanwhile, we're in the bar trying to deal with Willie, who is just this surly bastard of a dwarf. And I gotta say, I was so off in this game with Jermaine. I wasn't as smooth talking as I like to be. I wasn't as direct and clear, and I kept struggling with trying to persuade him and trying to intimidate him, and I was really screwing things up quite nicely. Luckily, we finally got the information after Marana had asked for a sex on the beach to begin with. He told us it was 100 gold pieces each. And then with my ineptitudes, and also because we had Perdita with us and she's wearing this tabard that was, well, unwelcome is what he told us. He raised the price to 200 gold. Well, we were not having that, tried to smooth things over, but that didn't go too well. So finally Titus says, "Look, I don't give a shit about you or this thing. If you want, we'll pay 100 and let us in, and if not, I'm just going to crack you upside the head and leave." So, of course, that's just my quick summary of what happened. You can watch the actual real play. I'll put a link for that to see the actual events, but that's the quick what happened. So, we paid him 300 gold pieces for myself, Marana, and Titus to gain entry. Now, he tells us where to go, which essentially is the same thing. Go in the kitchen, pull the sconce, go down the stairs. So we do that. Meanwhile, Lily and Alina had kind of disguised themselves going downstairs. Lily just kind of tried to try to hide her breastplate and shield as best she could, and Alina actually used this some form of magic to disguise herself. So they had already stepped into and were kind of like casing out the downstairs tap room, I guess it is, and there's a few nobles, what it looked like to be nobles, or at least upper crust, sitting around talking with some people that seemed to be from this establishment. Some of them were having drinks, some of them were just chit-chatting. There was, I think there was a bartender and two, or there might not have been a bartender, but there was a bar, and then there were two, like, bouncer-looking dudes. So we go downstairs, the group of us. Now, once everybody's downstairs, Perdita, because she wasn't quote-unquote welcome, she decided to kind of like hang outside in the alley and just keep an eye on Willie and the tavern in general. When the group of us gets downstairs, we're poking around. Marana had used, while we were upstairs, she had used her trinket, which allows her to use the ability to get true sight. So she's like looking around this whole place, trying to see what's really real. And she notices that Alina has this mask on her, or this magical disguise on. So she walked over to Alina and tries to kind of tell her what's going on, and meantime, I went down and tried to get one of the working girls, I guess I should call them, to talk with me or what have you. Marana had sent Ku over near me, and the funny thing is, when we all walked downstairs, everybody kind of like turned and gave us the hairy eyeball, like, "What are these people doing here?" And then when this gal, who turns out to be Crystal, is her name, she says, "You can come with me, but not the cat." And I kind of laughed about it, but I called Marana and said, like I'm pretending she's my wife or something. "Darling, do you want to join me or whatever?" And I'm trying to think, this is a kinky place, so let's be kinky, right? So I she says, "Okay, well, we could step into this other room." So we go into this room with her, and I say, like, "Can we have a bath?" And my intention was to get, well, either partially dressed or wasn't really thinking it would get to fully undressed, but who knows, and try to chat this gal up. Well, just like the bartender Willie upstairs, Crystal wasn't having any of it. So even though I'm trying to be charming and glean some information from her and get some headway, neither one of them seems even the slightest bit interested in dealing with information, brokering information. All they care about apparently is doing their job. So you gotta kind of respect that. While Marana and I are talking with Crystal, Alina, because Marana had seen a secret door and mentioned it to Alina. Alina whispers into Titus's ear, "Hey, create a distraction." But Titus doesn't realize it's Alina because she's disguised as a human rather than a tiefling that he's used to. And he's kind of like, "What? What are you talking about?" And then after a moment, he recognizes her voice, and she tells him, "Make a distraction." So he just swipes a bunch of glasses and stuff off the little bar and makes a big clattering noise as he does. And then the two bouncers try to step up like they're going to successfully get him out of the bar and minimize the damage or minimize the scene that he creates. Well, he proceeds to cold cock both of them and drop them to the floor. And then Alina has her distraction and sneaks or figures out how to open the secret door. So Lily and Alina again kind of do their thing and sneak off to there. Marana and myself, we hear this commotion. We're not getting anywhere with Crystal. She kind of sees through the ruse and says, "Okay, since you guys aren't interested, this is over." And of course, the whole time I think Jermaine was making Marana really, really uncomfortable because he's starting to get undressed and he's being all flirtatious and she's trying to play along with this ruse. And of course we have Ku in the room, and this woman is just like, nothing is happening with this cat no matter what, which I tried to play as being ridiculous, as if it's the cat's just with us. We're not expecting you to service the cat, which would have been ridiculous. So anyway, it was a big fiasco trying to deal with Crystal, as it was with Willie. And like I said, I was just off last weekend, or I don't know what it was. I just couldn't get a rhythm. I couldn't get that meat and get the information from these people. They were very tight-lipped, let's say. So one thing leads to another. We end up, as soon as Alina and Lily try to go into this, they go down a short corridor and they hear a voice that basically says, because they see a door, and the voice behind the door says, "Well, you might as well come on in since you are, rather than eavesdropping, let's just have a chat." So we enter this small room. Alina and Lily see there are a man and a woman flanking a desk, and there's a gentleman sitting behind the desk, and then kind of off in the corner in the back, there's another woman in leathers and stuff. And everyone is fine dressed very well, but the woman in leathers is clearly a bodyguard. She's got a couple short swords and whatever. So Alina says, Alina's like, "Where's Janice? We're looking for him, and 2,000 gold. That's all we want, and then we'll get out. We'll leave you alone. We're not interested in anything else. You'll never see us again." But homeboy behind the desk is like, "Yeah, I don't think I can trust that." The rest of it was really interesting. At one point, he kind of gets into everyone's head a little and says some things to each of the players or each of the characters that would throw them off a little bit. He calls, what else? What did he do? He called Titus uh, a betrayer or a backstabber or something like that, or he gets into he's like trying to say that each person has some dark side to them essentially, or some secret or something that they don't want to know about. He said like Jermaine's like, yeah, go ahead, I'm because he's talked to Jermaine last. Jermaine's like, I'm an open book, dude, whatever you want to say about me, it's not really gonna hurt. And he says, oh yes, you're such a friendly, wonderful person, but do you not feel alone or does that keep you company, I guess, when you're alone at night or something like that. So it's really interesting how our DM played into kind of a little bit of each of our backstories and stuff through this NPC, which was really awesome. And well, more about him in a moment. So once shit goes down, these two people on either side who are apparently one of them had this heart-shaped pendant who we had already heard something about and we were kind of looking for. We find out that, well, I guess Marana had seen through their disguises. They were actually what we came to find out later were succubi. So a male and a female succubi. And they basically dropped their facade, because we all saw them as human, and they drop their facade, and then we get into a fight. So madness ensues. We deal with the two succubi, and basically, we kill the two of them. I managed to convince the others to not kill the bodyguard, so Titus knocked her unconscious. I tied her up. Lily searched through the desk, and the rest of us were kind of like just standing guard, so to speak. We found some magic items on the wall. The bodyguard, once she was incapacitated, we basically tried to get some information out of her. She told us a little bit because we found a ledger in the desk, and the ledger had some names on it, including Janice's, and it had some markings. She kind of told us what that might mean. Some of the people were dead. Two of them, including Janice, were in the pens downstairs. So Titus decides to, as he put it, how did he say? From one professional to another, he let the bodyguard go. I had pilfered her coin purse, I think without anyone else knowing, and some poison, and let her go. Titus ended up with a magical shield, and Marana ended up with a magical quiver, and Perdita a magical cloak. So we got some nice little upgrades in that room, and then we proceeded down the stairs where, the gentleman at the desk, he went invisible before all of this started, and then slipped through the door at the back of the room. So we follow him downstairs, come into this room where essentially Lily and Alina, I think were the first two in there. Anyway, they get downstairs. I had Jermaine go follow the bodyguard out to make sure she actually left and didn't go inform Lily or something. When we all get down into the lower room, we have this room where there's this ghost-like minotaur in the center of the room. There's two tapestries one on the opposite wall, one on the wall next to us. So we had this little puzzle to figure out. We tried to touch the minotaur, and it took a swing at one. I think that was Perdita who tried that. And then Titus had the idea to... and then once that happened, we saw that the tapestry next to the door we came in, that moved in, and it was like this full color tapestry. It moved and had the same position as the shadow. So we kind of put one thing and the other together, put the two things together, and Titus realized, hey, there's something about that tapestry. He goes over and touches the key on the tapestry. Well, the key falls out of the Shadow Minotaur's hand. I used Mage Hand to pick it up so we don't take any other unnecessary risks, and use that to unlock the door that Alina had tried to pick, but the lock was just apparently either too complex or not meant to be a real key, is more like a magic key. Well, that works. We get through. We find another room with two doors and two statues, let's call them, that were basically like door guards that said, hey, guess what? One of us is going to tell you the truth. One of us is going to lie to you. You got to figure out which one, and we will open a door for you. And of course, again, gumball mouth Jermaine today. I could not. I knew. We all kind of knew what the puzzle was, and I fumbled the words again. Instead of saying which door would he tell me to go through, I said, "Is this the right door?" Or instead of saying, "Would he tell me this is the right door?" Because that's how you figure out which door to go through. I said, "Is this the right door?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?" And of course, we only get one question. Well, Titus decides he doesn't give a crap, and he just goes ahead right through the door that I asked about, which, woo, wonder of wonders, turned out to be the right one. We go through, we go down the hallway, we aren't finding any traps, thank God. We come to the end of a hall, we see another stair down to a doorway, and then there's like doors on either side of this corridor. Turns out that in these two doors where Alina picked the locks, there were Anna, who was just some woman that was in this ledger, and Janice Flintdew, the guy we're looking for. So what we figured out is that the succubi were using Janice and this other woman, Anna, as like playthings. So we discover, so they were like play toys, let's call them, for the succubi who were using them to feed themselves, essentially. And so we free the two of them. We're like, all right, what's going on? Neither one of them knows anything. Janice doesn't even remember taking the 2,000 gold. This woman has no idea what's happened. So we have like this memory loss from who knows when, last month or two. And then we decide we're going to go in to see what's down the stairs. So we drag these two civilians with us, go down the stairs. It enters into like kind of like a warehouse room or something like that, where you have some crates at the back of the room, a chest, and we're like searching around, and Titus sees that there's some kind of a canine in the back, some kind of a big black dog, which, you know, some kind of nasty beastie. And we hear from standing on top of the boxes, actually, we hear the voice of the guy who met us at the desk. Now, I should say that the man who was sitting behind the desk, Alina saw right away, of course, through his disguise as well. She saw him as like a tiger man with these funky hands. Now, as players, a lot of us know this is called a Rakshasa. So, as players, we're like, oh crap, we don't want to mess with this dude, but we're trying to stay in character and not metagame, so we don't know anything about this. Even though Marana kind of said something about it to Alina, we're still like, okay, whatever, and so we're just pressing on. Well, he comes out of his invisibility because he casts a spell on Titus and dominates Titus, who failed his saving throw. So now Titus turns and starts attacking Perdita. And then so then again, combat ensues. We were able to take out the dog, who apparently was his little pet, and he was not happy about. We were kind of turning the tables and actually doing okay, but again, nothing we were throwing at this guy was hitting him. He revealed his true form after he cast the spell on Titus, so we see this tiger man, and he's like, we're throwing throwing arrows and weapons and spells at this guy, and like none of it's doing anything. We're just like, we're not even touching this guy. The only thing that seemed to maybe have some effect were the magic daggers that Alina is using. So anyway, one thing leads to another. We kill his hound. He's not happy about that, and he says, "You know what? I'm very angry. I know who you are, and I will deal with you all later." And then he poofs out. Great. So we search his chest. We find the missing gold. So there's 2,000. There's actually 7,000 gold and some silver and a couple of other little magic items. There was a feather token, which we don't actually know what the feather token is yet. So I'm very excited to see what that's about. And we also saw there was a bag of beans, which could be fun, and 2 potions. We turned out to be a potion of heroism and a potion of clairvoyance. So we got some coin, we got this, we have the 2,000 to bring back to Vilson, we have Janice to bring back to Vilson, and that's kind of where we left things off at the end of the session. All right, so that's the what happened. Now, my reaction to kind of the interactions and so forth through the game. This time, Perdita kind of took a little bit of a backseat through this through this whole adventure, which was interesting. She got into some of the fights, of course, and was there, but she was a little quiet through this one. Of course, her being with her tabard, that kind of threw things off from the beginning, but she managed to kind of skirt around that and realized that maybe it's not always such a good idea to be like announcing her faith and her, who she is and so forth all the time. So that was a good lesson learned. I again, I know I'm repeating myself. I just couldn't get over it. I still can't get over it. I was really inept in this adventure last week. I just didn't, I should be, I'm supposed to be the face or whatever. I have the, this ability to smooth talk people or intimidate people, and it was just not happening. During the combats, I did my best. I actually had a real good experience with Fairy Fire because I cast it on the first 3 we had to fight, and it worked. All 3 of them ended up being lit up with the Fairy Fire, which was huge. That helped us a lot in that battle. So that's fun. I'm really enjoying, like, I typically would play a character more like Titus, Perdita, or Marana, frontline fighter or support fighter or something like that. That's typically the types of characters I tend to play. So playing a bard and really trying to use him as a like full-on support bard is really fun. Like, I'm definitely going to get into the fray when it's necessary, but using all this kind of like support magic and the inspiration and stuff, it's been a lot of fun for me. I'm really enjoying that. We got to see a little bit of Lily being a little more of a sneak, and apparently she had some either experience or something with this underground thing here, which was kind of cool because apparently we know very little about each other still. So Jermaine is learning about the other characters as each of the players is kind of divulging little bits and pieces as we go along. And Marana did her thing. She had a couple of great shots with the bow. We had some fun with playing with Ku and getting him into the battle. She because of what happened in the last 2 sessions where twice now Ku has almost died, it was a little nerve-wracking for her, so she played Ku a lot more conservatively, which was really fun to see her, like her being mama bear and trying to protect her kitty. So that was fun. Alina got to do her thing and, sneak around and be the kind of, how do you want to say it? Almost like a spy, not really, but like sort of like do some spy stuff where, she's disguising herself and sneaking around and picking locks and all this. And yeah, it was a lot of fun on all those levels. So for me in this session, the what do I say? The award for the best player in the session absolutely goes to Charles playing Titus. Titus really was clutch in this session. Charles had a couple of fantastic one-liners that was cracking everybody up. He in combats, he was handling business as usual, and he figured out the golden key in the Minotaur room. So it was like he picked the door to go through, which ended up, kind of he and I together, I suppose you could say, picked the right door, but he was the one that again took the initiative. So I kudos to Charles and to Titus for this session. It really, to me, he was the best in the whole session. It was a lot of fun watching him and listening to how he plays Titus. Titus is getting a little more dynamic than just this kind of drunken fighter, which is dull. And now we're seeing more shades and more colors of Titus, which is a lot of fun. And so yeah, kudos to and hats off to Charles playing Titus. Titus was definitely the superstar in this episode, in my opinion. So everybody had a lot of fun. Everybody contributed. We had another great session, and I can't wait for tonight's session. This is going to be, I think, interesting because we have some stuff to, some loose ends to tie up, and then I think there's going to end up being I think there'll be a lot of aftermath from this. I think we're going to have a lot to discuss as a group, as our characters are going to probably have some conversations about like what's been going down and who we are individually and what that means for the group. So it should be super fun. Probably a lot of RP tonight. Let's see what happens tonight. I'll do another recap next week. If you want, again, the information is in the link stuff below. You can see the actual real play from our last session 4, and let's see what happens in this next session. Tune in next week. I'll have another Monday night session up. I'll have another recap for our weekend session with the VÄRLDEN Reach. And of course, I'm working on some other stuff, so please keep checking in. Do subscribe. That'll give you the hints as soon as I have a video out. And in the meantime, hey, thanks for stopping in. Thanks for watching. And I hope I get to see you at the table someday. Of course, to my friends I'm playing with later this evening, hey, everybody, let's keep rolling 20s.